Hey everyone, and welcome back to Cruising with Matthew. In this video, I'm going to tell you all about my experience during Fred Olsen's fleet in Funchal, which saw all three ships of the Fred Olsen fleet docking together for the very first time. So I really hope you enjoy my video of this unique event. Before I start, I want to highlight that this cruise was gifted to me as a media trip by Fred Olsen. Therefore, you'll see the paid promotion flag on this video. This is not to say that I've been paid by Fred Olsen to portray this cruise in a particular way. It's simply to declare that this is a gifted media trip. As always, you'll get my unbiased opinion about what I enjoyed and what could be improved. So without further ado, let's go on to the video. I was invited by Fred Olsen to be part of their Fleet in Funchal celebrations on board the flagship Boletta. Now me and Yeyan have a lot of love for Fred Olsen and their ships. Borealis was Yeyan's first ever cruise ship when we sailed on her in December 2021. And Balmoral gave us the unforgettable experience of sailing up the River Seine, as well as being a wonderfully unique ship herself. We also just love the cruise experience itself, as whenever we step on board, we feel like we've come back home. Their ships just feel so comfortable and offer a traditional cruise experience which I love. The staff truly make it though, as they are so friendly, and this shines through in your interactions with them. Whether it be passing a cleaner who is wiping the stair banister or a senior officer, everyone is so warm and welcoming on their ships. Therefore, we couldn't wait for this cruise to begin, and we were so excited to be a little part of Fred Olsen's history during the fleet in Funchal. This being said, it was not all plain sailing. As we departed Southampton and sailed through the Bay of Biscay, we encountered some fairly choppy seas, reaching up to 6 meters at times. Now, I may be weird, but seeing a ship pitch and roll is something that I find so exciting, and as neither me or Yeyan ever get seasick, the motion of the ocean didn't cause any issues for us. This being said, we learnt that we had just missed the newly named Storm Kiran, which was causing some pretty awful conditions at sea with high seas and winds affecting maritime traffic. With the exception of that choppy first day at sea, we were largely unaffected by this adverse weather system. Unfortunately, this had quite the impact on our sister ships, with Borealis having to swap the Azores for Belfast and Cove, with Balmoral being forced to take shelter as she sailed through the Bay of Biscay into Getcho for several days as they waited for the storm to subside. Considering Balmoral only left Southampton the day after we did, we felt very lucky that the rest of our cruise was completely unaffected by any bad weather. Inevitably, the rumour mill started up on whether or not all three ships would actually be able to meet up in Funchal, as the weather was still quite bad. As lovely as Boletta is, a single Fred in Funchal may not have had the same impact that Fred Olsen was intending. However, we all breathed a collective sigh of relief when our tracking app showed that both ships were speeding their way to Funchal. The night before the fleet in Funchal genuinely felt to me like Christmas Eve when I was younger, especially after finding that we had been gifted some fabulous Fleet in Funchal merchandise, including a t-shirt for each of us to wear on the next day. I was so giddy at this point, but sleep finally came, and I woke up the next day to see the stunning island of Madeira as the sun rose on a day packed full of excitement and anticipation. Now, Balmoral was already in Funchal as she had arrived the night before, but I was really lucky and got chance to see her shimmy herself into the correct berth for the day's festivities after a local ferry had departed. This was a great chance to see Balmoral in all her beauty as she came alongside her berth. She may be an older ship, but I have a real soft spot for her. It was then time for Borealis to arrive, with her berth requiring her to slot in between us on Boletta and Balmoral. The first surprise of the day was the fact that this whole manoeuvre occurred whilst Borealis was going backwards. I'll never fail to be impressed by the skill of the crew in moving these ships into such tight spaces. Flags were waving, horns were blasting, and everyone was waving to each other as she went past us. Now, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't cry a little bit just then. It may sound silly, but it was just such an emotional moment for me. The fact these ships sailed through some pretty atrocious weather to get here made the whole experience even more special. Chatting to nearby passengers, I was reassured to say that I wasn't the only person who felt like this, and we all agreed that today was going to be a really special day. Once I'd composed myself and had breakfast, we headed into Funchal for a bit of exploring. As part of the celebrations, the port of Funchal had teamed up with Fred Olsen to give us a bit of a treasure hunt so that we could explore the local area whilst we were in port, which I thought was a lovely touch. However, at this point, my phone decided to run out of storage and then promptly die on me. Thankfully, I did manage to resuscitate it, but it meant that I don't have footage of Funchal, so apologies about that. However, it was only a brief visit into Funchal, as we didn't want to miss any of the events on the quayside, so before long we decided to head back to the ship. En route, we just had to take in the view of all three Fred Olsen ships in port together, basking in the sunshine. The ship geek of me was practically doing somersaults at this point, as they all looked absolutely stunning together. Yet the day's events were only really just getting started, with Fred Olsen organising a big quayside celebration where passengers and crew of all three ships got to enjoy a plethora of events. This included performances by the resident bands across the fleet, as well as the entertainment managers all taking to the stage together. This was so much fun to see, and we really enjoyed seeing familiar faces such as Oliver, who was our entertainment manager when we were on Balmoral and Borealis. It was also great to see our fantastic entertainment manager, Sammy, as well. Other events here included the Battle of the Bartenders, which we sadly missed, as well as a massive performance by all three of the Fred Olsen show teams. How they managed to choreograph this piece, we have no idea, but we really enjoyed it, as the whole show was packed full of energy and it was so fun to watch. In addition to local Madeiran stalls, there was also a quayside carnival to enjoy, where you could play a number of funfair style games to try and win some Fred Olsen prize points or some other goodies. These included Bago, Guess the Teddy, the Human Fruit Machine, and much more. We really enjoyed playing these and were immensely popular with both passengers and crew. What made the experience even better, however, was that it was all for a worthy cause, with each ticket to play costing £1 and all proceeds going to the RNLI. Over the course of the day, the whole fleet managed to raise over £16,000. The best part of the day was the fact that you could explore any ship in the Fred Olsen fleet for the day. As we had such fond memories of both Balmoral and Borealis, we were so excited to get on board. I would say that probably one of the only issues I encountered was the fact that embarking and debarking each ship proved to be quite difficult, as there was only one gangway and it did get quite crowded at times. Once on board, however, everything was calm and relaxed. Firstly, we explored the beautiful Balmoral, who felt just as classy and unique as she did in September 2022. Whilst not as big as Borealis or Boletta, I just love Balmoral's intimate feel, the tiered aft, and the full wraparound promenade that goes right to the front of the ship. Another great touch by Fred Olsen was the fact that we were given 2 drinks vouchers each to enjoy on whichever ship we fancied. So after a lot of walking on a hot day, we headed to Balmoral's observatory to cool down with a nice cocktail. I loved the fact that they had designed special Fleet and Funchal cocktails, so me and Yeyan just had to try one of those. As we enjoyed our drink, we were amazed to find that one of the waiters serving us recognised us from our cruise the previous year. Hopefully we were remembered for good reasons, but I think that says a lot about how well the crew get to know you, even during these shorter cruises. After a quick break, we quite literally jumped ship to Borealis and started exploring once again. It was so nice to be able to revisit the ship that made Yeyan fall in love with cruising, and we've definitely decided we need to sail on her again soon. It did feel quite bizarre being on the sister ship to Boletta, because she felt identical but also slightly different due to her different colour schemes and things like that. Whilst wandering the top decks of Borealis, we were lucky enough to get a bird's-eye view of one of the more competitive events held for the fleet in Funchal, the Fleet Tug of War. This was in full swing and it certainly looked quite intense. However, we were very happy to hear that Team Boletta had won the men's tug of war, although we couldn't celebrate too loudly, being on Borealis and all that. Before we knew it, it was time to return to our own ships and prepare to bid a farewell to Funchal and our sister ships. Now, Fred Olsen had arranged a big sailaway party around the aft Lido pool. However, after all the excitement of the day, we decided to give that a miss and take in the views of Funchal above the midships pool. This turned out to be a great idea of ours, as we had the perfect vantage point to be able to enjoy the sail away. As Borealis was the first ship to depart, we got the opportunity to once again wave to our sister ship. This was just a fantastic experience as she sailed past us with horns blasting and people waving and cheering as she passed us. In fact, I think it's something you need to hear for yourself because it was just amazing. As you can tell, the sailaway party was definitely in full swing, with the aft pool deck of Borealis being a sea of waving Fred Olsen flags. It was yet another emotional moment, as there was so much happiness and laughter in the air as she passed by, lit up by all the beautiful colours of the sunset. It was then our turn to depart, which meant that unfortunately we didn't get a similar experience with Balmoral. However, I just have to mention the local Funchal tugboat, who led each of the ships out in style with a water cannon salute, which ticked off another bucket list item for me. As we departed, the tug truly became the star of the show when they started doing donuts, spinning wildly, and generally showing off in the best way. The crew must have been very dizzy by the end of the whole thing, but I absolutely loved it. Before we knew it, we had left the harbour, and then, last but not least, it was Balmoral's turn to leave Funchal. As a result, we got to take in some fabulous views of Balmoral as she too left the harbour, but this time with Funchal acting as a stunning backdrop. This was not the end of the day's events by any stretch. In order for Fred Olsen to get some photos and drone shots, all three ships then arranged themselves into a line, with Balmoral fitting in between both Boletta and Borealis. This gave everyone, both passengers and crew, the chance to take some once-in-a-lifetime photos and videos as all three ships lined up perfectly just as the sun began to set over Madeira. This was probably my favourite moment of the day, as the view before us was just incredible, with Balmoral and Boletta looking beautiful as the light began to fade. The ships then began honking their horns in turn, and then all in unison to such an extent that I'm pretty sure the whole of Madeira must have heard us. All too soon, we had to break formation amidst much horn blasting and cheering as we prepared for the climax of the whole day, a fireworks display kindly put on for us by the port of Funchal. With all 3 ships arranged in a line, we took in the fantastic fireworks display, with the lights of Funchal acting as an incredible backdrop. At long last, it was sadly time for us to depart, with a final exchange of horns between the ships and Belletta showing off her Azipod propulsion by spinning 360 degrees. We said goodbye to Funchal, our sister ships, and began our long journey back to Southampton. There was just one final treat in store for us as we got to enjoy a special Fleet in Funchal dinner menu featuring a plethora of dishes inspired by Madeira and Portugal, which I thought was a lovely touch and rounded off the whole day really well. By this time we were completely exhausted and an early night was on the cards. As the lights of our sister ships and Madeira faded away, it was only natural that I got quite reflective about the whole thing. I was taken aback by just how emotional I got during the Fleet in Funchal, as on the face of it, this was a day where 3 ships were in the same port and at the same time. However, these ships hold so many memories to lots of people, both passengers and crew. I myself have such an emotional connection to each of the Fred Olsen ships, and I feel that many of the passengers would say the same. Although these ships are constructions of steel, glass and wood, they're so much more than that. They carry memories of fantastic holidays, laughter and new friends made. Therefore, the Fleet in Funchal was an experience I will never forget, and I am so thankful to have been given the opportunity to be part of this fantastic day. So there you have it, my video on Fred Olsen's Fleet in Funchal, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Do note that I'll be doing a number of additional videos covering our cruise on Belletta, so make sure you keep an eye out for them. If you've enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe because it's always appreciated. If you want to know more about cruising with Matthew, then take a look at my social media sites, the links are in the description below. I hope that you're all doing well at the moment, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. So until next time, this is Cruising with Matthew, and thank you so much for watching.